I truly cannot believe that it is currently December 29th. I swear, I think it's just one of those things when you're getting older that the years just seem to go faster and faster, but it's accurate. So, given that we are 3 days away from a new year, I thought there was no better time than to start talking about the books I am most excited about in 2025. Now, this list is really just limited to the first 6 months of the year because there are so many books that I haven't heard of yet. There are some that I know that are coming out in the second half of the year that I am excited for, but this is just going to be about my top books from the first 6 months, so through the end of June 2025. So I am putting these in order of publication, so they aren't in any sort of order of how much I'm excited for them. I am very excited for all of these. So let's get into it. Okay, so first we have on March 4th, The Dream Hotel by Layla Lalami. And this one has kind of a complicated premise. Complicated in the sense that I don't think I would be able to explain it well, so I am just going to read the synopsis from the publisher. It says, Sarah has just landed at LAX, returning home from a conference abroad, when agents from the Risk Assessment Administration pull her aside and inform her that she will soon commit a crime. Using data from her dreams, the RAA's algorithm has determined that she is at imminent risk of harming the person she loves most, her husband. For his safety, she must be kept under observation for 21 days. The agents transfer Sarah to a retention center where she is held with other dreamers, all of them women trying to prove their innocence from different crimes. With every deviation from the strict and ever-shifting rules of the facility, their stay is extended. Months pass and Sarah seems no closer to release. Then one day, a new resident arrives, disrupting the order of the facility and leading Sarah on a collision course with the very companies that have deprived her of her freedom. So this sounds insane in the best way. It sounds so intriguing. I really have been into dystopian books lately, and I don't know, maybe that's because I live in a dystopia. But I'm currently reading a book called Snow Globe. It's Korean translated. I will talk about it at a later date, but it is set in a dystopia, and there's another book on this list coming out that is also set in a dystopian world. And so, I don't know, those have just really been speaking to me lately. So when I read the synopsis of this, I was like, yes, please. I do feel like it's maybe going to have a feminist twist, given that all of these women are the ones that are locked up. Maybe there's another men's section that just wasn't mentioned, but locking women up for being crazy and dreams that they had, it's just crazy. But I am really looking forward to this. I think it sounds really unique, and I think it's gonna be a time. I don't know anything about this author, so I have no idea if this is a debut or what, but either way, sounds really good. The next book is coming out on March 11th, and that is All the Other Mothers Hate Me by Sarah Harmon. This is definitely one that I think is going to be a little more niche to specific type of person like me who loves a mommy drama. So this follows a young party mom. She's, a single mom. She doesn't really fit in with the other moms at her kids' school. She has a son named Dylan who is 10. That is just the thing that keeps her going. So one day her son's bully goes missing, and this kid is very rich. He comes from a family that is the owners of this frozen food conglomerate, and so needless to say, they have a lot of resources to put into this search. But it's looking like Dylan, her son, is kind of who they're focusing on. And so, being that our main character is a good mom and her whole life revolves around her kid, she is determined to do whatever it takes to clear his name. And there is some suspicion here that maybe Dylan isn't really telling the whole truth to her about what happened or if he knows anything. So that's kind of what I got from the synopsis. It sounds sort of like it sounds kind of like Finley Donovan is Killing It, which is a series I am very much over, but I did enjoy the first one. You lost me in the second one, but I know that there's a bunch of them now. But the first one I really, really liked. So this kind of seems like it could be, in the same vein as that, with just this mom who's doing her best and will do anything to protect her child. So love to see that, and I think this is going to be fun. On March 18th, we get what might be my most anticipated of the year, but we'll see. That is Sunrise on the Reaping by Suzanne Collins. I'm sure that if you are a Hunger Games fan, you have heard of this over and over again, so this is I'm certainly telling you nothing new, but I'm so excited! So this is a book about the Quarter Quell, which was Haymitch's Hunger Games, and if you don't remember, Haymitch was Katniss and Peeta's mentor in the first Hunger Games, and he just became like a huge part of their story, and he, has a really interesting kind of backstory from what we know already. So I'm so excited to actually see what happened during his Hunger Games and how he ended up the way he did. When the Ballad of Songbirds and Snakes was announced, which is the backstory of President Snow, I was so mad because this is the book I wanted from that beginning. When we found out that there was going to be a prequel to the Hunger Games, I was like, oh, it's going to be Haymitch's story. Yeah! And then it wasn't. And I was like, I don't give a fuck about President Snow. He's terrible. I don't need to know about him. This is going to be awesome. Haymitch is such a complicated character, and I just can't wait to see how that all began. And I ended up being really disappointed in the Ballad of Songbirds and Snakes, so this is like a time for redemption. It doesn't affect how I feel about the original trilogy, but I would love to have another Hunger Games book to help my heart. Next is a book that I actually have on NetGalley, and I'm hoping to start before too long, and that is called Cat's People by Tanya Guerrero. This comes out on April 1st, and I mean, just looking at the cover, you can tell that this is going to be a fantastic book for me and all other people who are cat ladies and cat gentlemen and cat folks. So this follows a girl named Nuria, I'm not 100% sure how it's pronounced, but I'm sure that someone will correct me. And she is part of a group called the Meow Yorkers, this little community of Brooklynites who take care of the stray cats in their neighborhood. Already obsessed. So in the little area that she takes care of, she starts to see little like notes around from like a secret admirer for her. And so she's got no idea who they could be from. And, there are quite a few people in this kind of group that like, I get the feeling they don't all know each other super well, but it's like more of a casual thing. But there is, like an investment banker and like an old man that runs a bodega and like a starving artist. Like, I'm making these up, but they're just a bunch of people from all different walks of life. And so she's like, who could it be from? And then her favorite cat, who is a black cat named Cat, gets sick. And so at this point, all of the neighborhood people have to really get together to make sure that this kitty is safe and is taken care of, and I think that kind of results in the found family situation. We'll see. I don't know. But it sounds so cute. It just sounds really heartwarming, and I could definitely use a heartwarming book. It's been a rough winter, been a rough year, so something like this sounds incredible, and I feel like just cats, like, you've sold me with the title to begin with because I am a cat lady. Particularly a black cat lady. I'm going to show you now pictures of my babies, Ruby and Reginald. They are the loves of my life. They are my children. And so I am just a huge fan of anything involving a black cat. Cats in general, but particularly black cats, just like, it's made for me. On May 13th, we have a new book by one of my favorite authors, that is Kevin Wilson, and the book is called Run for the Hills. This is just something that I wasn't even aware of until recently, and I am just so excited for this to come out. So if you're unfamiliar with Kevin Wilson, he wrote one of my favorite books of all time, Nothing to See Here. He's also written a few others that I've really liked. Now Is Not the Time to Panic and Perfect Little World. He's written plenty of other books, but those are the ones that I've read, and Nothing to See Here is by far just like perfection. So this one is about a girl named Madeline who lives with her mom in Tennessee. 20 years earlier, her dad left them, and so she's just, kind of existing. And so then one day, this man comes to her door and says, "Hi, I am your half-brother, and our dad left my family 30 years ago. And I happen to know that we have several other half-siblings around the country as well. So he basically begs her to go on this road trip with him where they're gonna find their other half siblings and hopefully find their dad as well. He hired a detective to find all this out, so I guess they're gonna go on a road trip. So this sounds like a perfect setup for a classic Kevin Wilson book because I feel like in a lot of his, he really focuses on like a found kind of quirky type family, not necessarily a found family because sometimes they are related, but just a really quirky, weird situation and, finding love and family in places that you might not expect to, I guess. And I just am so excited. This sounds like it's going to be funny, it's going to be sweet, and I love Kevin Wilson's writing. He does humor with a side of cavity-inducing sweetness so well, so this is going to be one I know I am going to love. I, of course, could not make this list without including the newest book from Stephen King called Never Flinch. This comes out on May 27th. So a detective named Izzy Janes, who we met in a previous Stephen King book, receives a letter basically saying that he is going to kill 13 innocents and 1 guilty in an act of atonement for the needless death of an innocent man. And of course, she's like, what? Is he serious? Is he not serious? Is this going to happen? What do I do? Where did this come from? So, she calls in Holly, who is a, very beloved Stephen King character. I know that there are some readers who are sick of her, but not me. To, help her kind of solve the case. Holly Gibney is a private investigator, but she's got a lot of people that she knows, and she's not held to the same, ethical standards as an actual police detective in the sense of, legalities. So, anyways, she can help in a different way. In the meantime, there is a controversial women's rights activist who's going on a speaking engagement tour around the country, and she ends up hiring Holly to be a bodyguard. And this character keeps being targeted and, threatened. And so I guess these storylines are going to intertwine somehow. So obviously this was going to make this list. Stephen King, of course. And it's Holly. Holly Gibney, love her as a character. So if you, aren't unfamiliar, you can certainly read this book without the background, but I feel like, it's definitely, you're missing out on something, but there are a lot of books to catch up on now at this point. Mr. Mercedes, Finders Keepers, End of Watch, The Outsider, If It Bleeds, Holly, and now this one. So that's a lot of books to catch up on if you want to get the whole Holly story, but either way, I think this is gonna be really, really good. And just from the description, it sounds a lot like Mr. Mercedes, which was my Stephen King gateway drug, basically. So I really look forward to this and also recommend reading Mr. Mercedes if you haven't. On June 3rd, we get Atmosphere, a Love Story by Taylor Jenkins Reid. And this is exciting because we haven't had a Taylor Jenkins Reid book in, I think, 2 years, maybe 3, honestly. But it's been a little while, so this is very exciting. So this one is set in the 1980s, and it follows a woman named Joan who works as a physics and astronomy professor. She gets the opportunity to join the Space Shuttle training program at NASA and go to space. So the story is going to follow her journey throughout her training and of course the people that she meets, and it's such a small group. I imagine these people all kind of become family. I'm sure there's personality clashes, etc. And then something on a mission when they're getting ready to go to space happens and everything changes forever. They always like to end synopsises like that. So like most of us, I had a quite a long space phase as a child. I was really into outer space and I really wanted to be an astronaut until I realized you had to be good at science. If you watch the show on Apple TV called For All Mankind, this reminds me of that. That's kind of it's about astronauts and, an alternate reality of what the space program could be like. I mean, I could tell you what happens at the end of the first episode that makes it kind of crazy, but why? I won't spoil the end of the first episode. Anyways, that show is amazing. You should go watch it, but it does have sort of, similar elements, and so I think that if you like that, you'll really like this, which I did. It's Taylor Jenkins Reid, so obviously gonna give it a shot, even though I really haven't cared for her last couple books. Her last one was Carrie Soto is Back, which I really did not like at all. I had a lot of ranting to do on that one. And before that was Malibu Rising, which I liked but did not love. Additionally, this one, I could be totally off base, but based on some of the wording in the official synopsis, I believe this is maybe going to be sapphic, so we'll see. So that's just my speculation, but we will see. And the last of my most anticipated, as of now, for the first half of 2025 is King of Ashes by S.A. Cosby, and this comes out on June 10th. So this follows a man named Roman who is called back to his small hometown in Virginia because his father's in a car accident. His sister and his dad run like a crematorium together, and his brother, I don't think really does much of anything except get into trouble. And so his brother is currently in some pretty big financial debt to some gangster types. And Roman is very good at money and numbers and making stuff happen. And so he says, I'll help you and figure this out, get you out of this debt that you owe, because he's got money and he's good at finagling, we'll say. So these guys that he owes money to are really, really bad, and basically they just keep pulling him in deeper and deeper, and basically makes Roman work for them to pay off these debts. Meanwhile, his sister is trying to solve their mother's disappearance that took place when they were all teenagers, and I don't know, I assume at some point these things are gonna intersect, because otherwise, why would it be in the story? Anyways, I love S.A. Cosby. He writes some seriously great, like, Southern Gothic feeling horror, although this does seem to be more of a thriller, but either way, his writing is always so good. And he writes really scary books. Not even like, I mean, I guess you could say that none of them are truly horror, but they're real scary. I've read, this will be my third one, so I've read All the Sinners Bleed and Razor Blade Tears. I loved both of those, and so I think this is going to be really great too. There's also always like a really interesting like kind of take on racism in the South. So I definitely think that that will add something to the story, and I can't wait. All right, so now it's your turn. Tell me what book you are most excited about in 2025. If you've heard of any of these, if you're excited about any of these, if you're not excited about any of these, I want all your opinions. Leave me a comment down below, and if you liked this video, give it a thumbs up. If you haven't subscribed, I would love it if you would, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye!